Yes, you're looking at a Jamaican who was on the FBI most wanted list, and there was a reward out for her. The FBI had issued a reward for her, and she was in Jamaica hiding because Jamaica is a criminal's paradise. Because there's so many people who are wanted all over the world, and they're in Jamaica. But the only reason why she was outed is because she refuses to share the loot with her boyfriend. Yes, man. As someone who was born and raised in Iberia Beach in Jamaica and who spent years serving as a police officer, I have learned one important lesson. Many major criminal investigations do not end because investigators suddenly become smarter. Quite often, they end because someone close to the suspect decides to talk. It happens all the time. Girlfriend, boyfriend, mother, brother, even best friend. History has shown that fugitives are frequently located because of information from insiders, friends, associates, business partners, or even romantic partners. When relationships break down, loyalties can disappear. Sometimes greed replaces friendship. Sometimes betrayal replaces trust. That is why experienced investigators often say that the greatest threat to many fugitives is not the police. It is someone they trusted. Now, in this particular case, authorities have confirmed that the suspect was arrested and returned to the United States to face federal charges. The public reporting explained the arrest and extradition, but it does not publicly identify who provided the information that led investigators to her. Any suggestion about who may have tipped off authorities or why remains speculation unless reported and supported by evidence, but based on our background and one and two little things. Her boyfriend is the one that informed on her, allegedly, from my own experience in Jamaica. However, I can understand why people ask questions about how information reaches law enforcement. Throughout my years in policing, I witnessed situations where confidential information, rewards, and credit for investigations became subjects of controversy. Those investigations and experiences shaped my view on accountability and transparency. One incident that has stayed with me involving the March 2004 operation in Barrett Town, St. James, during which FBI most wanted fugitive Upton Herrick Brown was killed in an exchange of gunfire with the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Detective Corporal Sidney Brevet, whom I knew from our time serving in St. Andrews South Division, was wounded during the operation. Detective Brevet later shared his own account publicly on this channel, including his views about the handling of the information and reward issues surrounding that investigation. Whether one agrees with those accounts or not, they raise a broader question that every democracy should be willing to ask. How are confidential informants protected? How are rewards administered? And how do authorities ensure that the individuals who legitimately provide critical information are treated fairly? Those are legitimate public interests questions because confidential informants often place themselves at tremendous personal risk. If people believe that they will not be protected or fairly compensated when appropriate, they may be less willing to come forward with information that could help solve serious crimes. So in this case, the boyfriend and the suspect, they have a disagreement over money. She wasn't willing to, give him $1 million out of it, $1 million US. And I don't know if he had watched the Jamaica Young Police channel or know Jamaican police operate, but for some reason he did not trust them. He called the FBI from Jamaica and told them where she was and make sure that he's the one that received the 150,000 US. And just like that, she was arrested. Those are legitimate public interest questions. That is why transparency matters. Accountability matters. Public confidence matters. At the same time, we must be careful not to substitute speculation for evidence. If we do not know in a particular case, we should acknowledge that we do not know. If evidence later becomes public, then it can be evaluated on its merits. So someone who knew the accused and the boyfriend had called the Jamaica Young Police channel and said that the boyfriend should be killed because he's an informer, because he's the one that gave up the accused. This case reminds us of two enduring realities. First, many fugitives are ultimately found because someone close to them decides to cooperate with investigators. Second, maintaining public trust requires law enforcement agencies to administer investigations, confidential source, and any reward program with integrity and fairness, so that citizens have confidence that justice, not favoritism, is guiding the process. So the Mali say, long run, short catch. You have to understand. So that is, if this is the first time visiting the Jamaica Young Police channel and you haven't subscribed as yet, please consider subscribing. If you are already a subscriber but you are not receiving your notifications, please unsubscribe, then subscribe again, and make sure your notifications are turned on. At the present moment, it's only 172 people that subscribe to the Jamaica Young Police channel are receiving notification. Let me repeat myself. 172 people. That's the threshold that YouTube had put on the channel from their surrogates, from the PMP LGBTQ plus criminal organization. Surrogates. That's in YouTube. And it started from a guy by the name of Omar Ibanks, a convicted drug dealer and a deportee, after he had exposed Mark Gumabir Golin in the killing of the PMP councillor Tyson. That's from when the channel has been under attack, because he had revealed the names of the people who had played an integral role in the killing of this man. And it go right back to the opposition leader, the big belly white man from England. So they had killed Tyson to give Omar Ibanks the seat. So he had exposed the opposition leader in an alleged murder case. So to those of you who have stood with this channel over the years, thank you for your loyalty and support. Many of you have watched the challenges this channel has faced over the past 2.5 years. Through it, we have remained committed to our mission of sharing our perspectives, encouraging discussion, and standing by what we believe is the truth. History reminds us that evil and wickedness may appear to prosper for a season. There are times when deception seems to win, and those who celebrate wrongdoing believe they have the final word. But history also teaches that lies are temporary. Lies are temporary. Truth as a way of enduring, and integrity as a way of outlasting deception. No matter how difficult the journey may become, we will continue to pursue what we believe is right and truthful. speak with conviction and encourage our audience to think critically, examine the evidence, and draw their own conclusions. Truth endures forever. Integrity endures forever. That is why we remain committed to this journey with you. They can't break us. Never. But as we say, the longest liver will see.
Yes, welcome to the Jamaica Young Police channel. To our loyal viewers, subscribers and Patreon member. At the channel, we are a group of law-abiding citizens who believe in the rule of law and respect the rights of every citizen, but not the ones who do not subscribe to such behavior. We do believe in and support preemptive strikes because they save lives. This is a logical conclusion because preemptive strikes save lives and prevent the further loss of lives. We are all about saving lives at this channel. We at the channel aid criminals with a passion and do not want them over here. We do not want your views, your subscriptions, your likes or your comments. Please go elsewhere where the red carpet is waiting for you. Over here, we want you to go to prison or the departure lounge at Madden. Moving on to today's video.
It's not her real hair, that is false hair. You're looking at her, she's not, that's not her real hair. It's false hair. So she's a US citizen, naturalized citizen. We don't know if Donald Trump is going to try to revoke her citizenship because of the crime that she had committed in. Her name is Elaine and Jean Esco, who was on the FBI most wanted list, and she's the most wanted fraudster list, was captured in Jamaica and returned to South Florida to face federal charges. Prosecutors allege she participated in a scheme that fraudulently obtained more than $32 million in federal COVID-19 relief funds. She's charged with an offense including conspiracy to commit wire fraud, conspiracy to commit money laundering, and money laundering. Authorities say she failed to appear in federal court in 2025 before fleeing to Jamaica. She knows that once she got Jamaica, a criminal's paradise. But if, I can tell you this, if the boyfriend, there wasn't a falling out between them, she could stay in Jamaica and die. Because right now we have a man who is wanted and have been in Jamaica longer than her, Javon Pinnock. And to date, because NYPD hasn't put out a reward for him, no one is talking, so I'll have to contact the district attorney up there and for them to put a reward out for this man. Because I know that Jamaicans, one thing with them, money is God. Them sell you out, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just saw it go. So today, we are examining the story that demonstrates how financial crime can cross borders and how law enforcement agencies from different countries work together when a fugitive is located. This is not a story about street crime. It is not a story about gangs. It is a story about allegations involving millions of dollars, international cooperation, and the message that investigators are sending to anyone who believes they can escape justice simply by leaving one country for another. Jamaica is a criminal's paradise, and I say again, if this woman hadn't offended her boyfriend, she would still be in Jamaica, because she didn't have to come out her house. And neighbors in Jamaica, as much as them nosy, it all depends on where them live. If you live in an upscale neighborhood, people don't even care about who is living there. And that would be just like prison itself. All she have to do is stay off of the phone, no contact with others. Look how many wanted, how many wanted fugitives are in Jamaica right now. Authorities announced that a woman who appeared on the FBI most wanted list for an alleged COVID-19 relief fraud scheme was located in Jamaica and returned to the United States to face federal charges. That announcement immediately raised several important questions. How do investigators find fugitives years after they disappear? How do countries cooperate in locating and returning someone who's wanted? What lessons should ordinary people learn from one of the largest alleged pandemic fraud cases? So a Jamaican, top the pandemic fraud case in America. Boy, I tell you. Today we are going beyond the headlines. We are going to examine the investigation and the legal process, international cooperation, and why financial crimes often leave a trail that is much harder to erase than many people believe. Stay with me because the story is bigger than one individual. It is about how modern investigations work in today's connected world. And please, if you have reached this far, just type and tell me where you're watching from. Every major investigation starts with evidence. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that investigators wake up one day and simply decide to arrest someone. That is not how major federal investigations work. Complex financial crime investigations often begin with documents, electronic records, banking transactions, business filings, emails, tax records, and witness interviews. Unlike many violent crimes that rely heavily on eyewitness testimony, financial investigations often rely on documentary evidence. So this is the part now where them tell us documents always prove liars to be liars. Money leaves records, electronic transfers leave records, wire communications leave records, business registration leave records, phone calls leave records, computer leave records. Investigators often spend months, even years, piecing together. Yes, so investigators often spend months or even years piecing together those records before charges are filed. That is why financial investigations frequently takes longer than people expected. Why COVID relief programs became targets. During the pandemic, governments around the world created emergency relief programs to help businesses survive. The United States distributed hundreds of billions of dollars through multiple relief programs. The overwhelming majority of recipients used those funds lawfully. However, authorities have also reported thousands of cases involved in alleged fraud. When large amounts of money are made available quickly, there's always the risk that some individual will attempt to exploit the system. That is why investigators have spent years reviewing applications, financial records, and transactions connected to pandemic relief. One lesson from this case is that international borders do not necessarily stop investigations. Many countries cooperate through legal treaties, extradition agreements, immigration authorities, and law enforcement partnership. That cooperation may involve locating fugitives, verifying identities, sharing intelligence, coordinating arrest, and arranging lawful transfer through the courts. This process generally requires legal procedures and judicial oversight. Not simple one country handing someone over without due process. Many people think only violent crimes are difficult to investigate. In reality, financial crimes often generate an enormous amount of evidence. Bank accounts, wire transfers, cell phone records, email accounts, business entities, tax filings, accounting records, travel records, electronic devices. Modern investigators frequently reconstruct financial activities using these records. That is why experts often say that financial evidence can tell a very detailed story. So when someone is arrested or charged, the public naturally pays attention. And there is an important legal principle that should never be forgotten. An arrest is not the same as a conviction. Charges represent allegations that prosecutors must prove in court. One thing I can tell you about the federal system in America, they have a 99.8% conviction rate. Because when the feds arrest you, your fate is sealed. They are very detailed and meticulous in that fashion. You don't want to play with them. Every defendant is entitled to due process, legal representation, and the opportunity to challenge the government's evidence. Respecting that principle strengthens the justice system. This case also serves as a reminder that fraud affects real people. When public money intended for emergency relief is allegedly diverted, taxpayers ultimately bear the cost. Resources intended to support struggling businesses, workers, and communities may be unavailable to those who truly needed them. That is one reason authorities devote substantial resources investigating these cases and the crimes that they have committed. There are several practical lessons everyone can take away. Be cautious of everyone promising easy money. Verify business opportunities before investing or participating. Maintain accurate financial records. Understand that online transactions are often traceable. Remember that moving to another country does not necessarily end a criminal investigation. It just delays it until they catch you, they find you. Cases like this reminds us that sophisticated investigations increasingly rely on technology, forensic accounting, and international partnerships. Whether the allegations ultimately result in conviction is a matter for the courts. But the investigation itself illustrates how financial crimes can span jurisdictions and how agencies coordinate across borders. As this case moves through the legal process, it is important to separate verified facts from intelligence. Public reporting indicate that the suspect was returned to the United States to face federal charges. What happened next will be determined through the judicial process, where prosecutors must present evidence and the defense has the opportunity to respond. That is how the rule of law is intended to work. Why the federal government wins so many cases? Let me tell you something that every person should understand before they ever find themselves sitting across from a federal prosecutor. The United States federal court system is not like what you see on television. Hollywood has convinced people that every criminal case is end with a dramatic courtroom battle where the lawyers are shouting objection and the witnesses are breaking down on the stand. That may happen occasionally, but that is not how the federal system usually works. The federal government has one of the highest conviction rates in the world. Let me repeat myself. The federal government has one of the highest conviction rates in the world. Over many years, well over 90% of federal criminal convictions have come from guilty pleas rather than jury verdicts. Why? because the time federal prosecutors bring an indictment, they have often spent months or even years building the case. Ladies and gentlemen, understand how federal investigators operate. The FBI, the IRS, Criminal Investigation Division, the DEA, Homeland Security Investigations, U.S. Postal Inspection Service, the Secret Service. These agencies are not generally rushing to make an arrest simply because they have a suspicion. They build cases. They gather documents. They subpoena bank records. They execute search warrants. They analyze phones. They recover deleted text messages. They trace wire transfers. They interview witnesses. They use confidential informants. They examine surveillance footage. They compare fingerprints. They analyze DNA where applicable. They obtain emails. They review social media. They reconstruct financial transactions. And they keep doing this until prosecutors believe they have enough evidence to prove the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. That process is why federal investigations often takes a long time. People sometimes ask, why did it take 2 years? Why 3 years? Why 5 years? Because investigators are assembling a puzzle. Every piece matters. Now imagine that you are a defense attorney. The discovery process begins. Federal prosecutors provide the evidence they intend to use. You receive boxes of documents, thousands of pages, electronic records, bank statements, video footage, photographs, recorded conversations, forensic reports, phone records, expert analysis, witness statements, search warrant returns, laboratory reports. The defense attorney's first responsibility is not to tell the client what the client wants to hear. It is to tell the client the truth. If the attorney carefully reviews the government's evidence and conclude that the prosecution has a very strong case, that attorney has an ethical obligation to explain the risk of going to trial. A good defense lawyer does not promise miracles. A good defense lawyer explains the strengths and weaknesses of the case, the possible sentences, and the option available under the law. That is one reason so many federal defendants choose to enter guilty pleas. It is not necessarily because they are giving up. It is often because they have been advised that evidence creates a significant risk of conviction at trial, and a negotiated plea agreement may result in a lower sentence than if they are convicted after trial. That is a strategic legal decision made after reviewing the evidence and considering the applicable sentencing law. Another important point is that federal prosecutors generally have discretion over which cases to bring. Unlike some local systems that handle very high volumes of arrest, federal prosecutors are selective. They typically pursue cases that they believe can be proven with admissible evidence. That selectivity also contributes to the federal system's high conviction rate. Those of you who have been following cases with this Justice Department with Donald Trump prosecutors, the reason why people are walking is because these people, they are not that savvy. They are using, they are circumventing the judicial system. That's why people keep walking. Like James Comey, Letitia, the New York Attorney General, Letitia James and others. No. Does it mean that every person charged federally is guilty? Absolutely not. Every defendant is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in a court or unless they choose to plead guilty. The U.S. Constitution guarantees the right to a fair trial, the right to bring counsel, and the right to challenge the government's evidence. There have been cases in which defendants have been acquitted, like John Gotti. There have been also cases where charges were dismissed. The justice system is designed to allow both sides to present their case. But if you ask experienced federal defense attorneys what often persuades clients to accept plea agreements, many will tell you the same thing. It is the strength of the government's evidence and the potential sentences exposure if convicted at trial, and the legal advice provided after reviewing the prosecution's case. So what is the lesson for all of us? Do not underestimate a federal investigation. When federal agents execute an arrest, it often follows extensive investigative work behind the scene. When defense counsel reviews the evidence, their role is to provide candid, professional advice, not false hope. And for every citizen, the greatest protection is simple: stay on the right side of the law. Because federal investigations can be thorough, complex, and supported by significant investigative resources. At the same time, remember that our justice system is built on due process. Every person charged with a crime has the right to contest the evidence, to be presented by counsel, and receive fair hearing before an impartial court. Those constitutional protections are fundamental, regardless of the allegations involved. So now we go right back to Sister Esco. So she thought that she was safe in Jamaica because she was in the arms of her lover. But her lover, allegedly turned on her, and now she has been captured in Jamaica, and now she's in South Florida to face the music. This is a sad case, but you have to understand that she had made that decision that she want to become rich and decide to go after the federal government money, 33 million US. And the thing is that maybe she thought that COVID would never be over. It wouldn't, COVID would be there forever. And forget that one thing with Uncle Sam: they have nothing named forgiveness or forgetfulness in their toolbox. Whereas when you're black and you mess with the federal government, they're coming for you. So if you have reached the end of this presentation, just please type honesty. Have yourself a beautiful day. Jamaica Young Police Channel out.